Sunderland really came out the traps for this summer transfer window swinging and really caught the imagination of football fans and the Sunderland fans for, the ambitious moves they were making. Could they actually upset the natural order? Could one of the teams that get promoted actually retain their Premier League status? And Sunderland are definitely one of the early shouts from the neutral observers that really could be the one that strikes their case to do that this season. But quickly after the video went out, there was actually a lot of other transfer business rumbling around. Arnaud Lorente, the kind of attacking winger, forward type player from Sassuolo, that deal's kind of broke down. He's maybe moving elsewhere. But right off the back of that, and in the last video where we're looking at the midfield, we were chatting about kind of how thin it was and how it needed an extra little bit of Premier League upper level quality to maybe upgrade the team. They've went out, they've pushed the boat out, and despite all the protestations from Erik ten Hag, they have acquired and they have signed Granit Bring the Walls Down Xhaka. Now, Granit Xhaka is a player that will be familiar to a lot of Premier League fans across the country, of course, from his time at Arsenal. But since going back to the Bundesliga and playing at Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen, he really took his game to another level. He really broke through that glass ceiling he had of being the Arsenal-type bridesmaid character that Arsenal have kind of grown into over the last couple of years, and became the winner. Got over the hump, climbed the mountain, won the title, went to cup finals, and was the leader and the centrepiece of the team. And I think, this challenge he's taken on by coming to Sunderland will really suit him down to the ground. But this is the sort of player that I think Sunderland really do need. And I think Granit Xhaka is in a great position to be one of these players that he's not going to be like player of the year or whatever, but by the end of the season, a lot of people will look at his contributions for Sunderland and say, that was a great signing. And off the back of this move, this is a real centrepiece player coming into the squad now that should make some other deals and some other transfers for Sunderland maybe a bit more realistic, maybe make them possible, because as we know, good players want to play with good players. And now that Granit Xhaka really comes into the midfield picture here, I would think alongside Habib Diarra, you then have the likes of Neil, who was very important for you guys last year, Brown, Rigg, and new signing Noah Siddiqui. This midfield all of a sudden feels like it's got the required level of depth and quality where you really probably could just about start the season with it. But Granit Xhaka is very much one of these players that is the centre of the universe. This guy for Sunderland is going to be one of those players that we see at the end of most matches clipping 120, 130 passes or whatever it might be. I expect him to be the guy that gets the ball out of defence and turns it into attack. Now, on the last video, like I mentioned to you guys, I didn't follow Sunderland in the Championship, and I'm kind of crash coursing myself up to speed with them, with you guys here on the channel, with their transfer business ahead of the new Premier League season. And in the analysis, I did say it looks like they finished the season playing a lot of 4-4-2, but they did play some 4-3-3 at times. And you guys in the comment section were very quick to tell me that, no, actually, we played a lot of 4-3-3 last year. You were very quick to tell me how highly you rate the likes of Hume and Ballard as well, or Ballard, or whatever. Last time we were looking at the prospect of Lucimi coming in to partner Reinildo in defence. And again, a lot of you guys still believe that Reinildo is going to be a left back. Having watched a lot of this guy, if he is playing left back, it's going to be like in a flat back four. He's not really a wing back. He's not really a guy you're going to see crossing. And I say crossing the halfway line is like an expression. I'm sure you'll see him across the halfway line a fair amount of time if he isn't at left back. But I really can't imagine him not playing centre back in the Premier League, so I'm going to keep him here right now. And again, some of you guys were quite happy to tell me that you rank this guy quite highly. And Helge, the former Celtic player, he's told me I could delete him. He's probably not that good and not going to feature too often this year. But the back four, back five, there's maybe some options that could happen there. But I think with the likes of Xhaka, Enzo Laffi, Diarra and Siddiqui, if you could actually get all four of them on the pitch, you would be able to make a really nice box midfield of two players like Siddiqui and Diarra, who are very effective at winning the ball back and, being very good in tight spaces, organising the defence, that sort of thing. And then with the likes of Xhaka and Laffi, you've got two absolute maestros on the ball that can really, again, operate in tight spaces, but then play that killer ball to maybe play in someone like Adringa, Isidore, Mayenda. Again, a lot of you guys in the comment sections were singing his praises. I'm a big fan of Paddy Roberts, and Talby, the new signing, is a bit of a wonder kid, so there's plenty of guys to feed these passes into, especially if some of them are going to be really, really deep. I should maybe change the colour of Siddiqui for visual purposes, but I think you can imagine along with me here for a minute. But if you are playing really deep and being quite defensive, and you've only got two forwards to hit into these types of channels, the likes of Adringa, Isidore, maybe not wee Paddy, but certainly the likes of Mayenda. And another player that Sunderland will be linked to today, Baris Yilmaz of Galatasaray, again could fit into that role very, very well. So I like the tactical versatility it adds into what Sunderland already have, between maybe there's a room where they play the 4-4-2 shape with Xhaka, Diarra, and maybe Adringa on the right hand side here, and Lafie does that left midfield role. I just do think this may be a bit slow, because Xhaka is not a legs based player. He's not going to be going fully box to box, although he does go box to box in the sense of he'll keep up with play or whatever. But this is a move, I don't know if I mentioned it on this video or on one of the Brentford ones, but I'm really surprised that Jordan Henderson didn't go back to Sunderland. And Granit Xhaka, by the way, is, I would say, a bit of an upgrade on Jordan Henderson. Very similar type of player. And yeah, they've both climbed the mountain, as it were. They've both won leagues and important stuff or whatever. But Xhaka has that little bit of continental guile and IQ or whatever. I'm not saying Jordan Henderson doesn't have that, but again, I think what you would have benefited from Jordan Henderson is that he's that fan on the pitch. He'll play for the colours, play for the badge, play for the shirt. And yeah, you're definitely not going to get that with Granit Xhaka, but I think what you gain with him is, maybe something that's just as valuable, perhaps, that experience and that kind of eye and that kind of football IQ. Now, don't get me wrong, I could see Sunderland maybe making another move into midfield here, because it is missing a little bit of dynamism. It's missing a little bit of legs. We see so many different teams in the Premier League, and don't get me wrong, Diarra's maybe got a bit of this in him, but I've got genuine engines in the midfield. I'm thinking about guys like Onana, Tielemans, Douglas Luiz, Dominguez, Bruno Guimaraes. Sorry, I mentioned a Newcastle player, and the list goes on. Every Premier League team has got some of these real game athletes, and I'm not saying there's not athletes in this squad, don't get me wrong, but I just don't really see anyone that's going to carry the ball across the pitch from the middle, and that might be something that Sunderland struggle to get out of their own half with, or struggle to turn over play. And I think if they were to make another addition into midfield, it's more than likely going to be this type of box to box leggy player to kind of help carry the water, because it's kind of the only thing that's missing in this midfield dynamic. The defence, you guys, like I say, are quite confident that some of the younger players you've got bringing up here with a year of experience in the Prem could maybe bridge that gap, could maybe step up, and I get that, but I still think targeting someone like John Lucime, or maybe even another quality fullback, just to take off the burden of the young players you've got in here, is something that should be quite high on the to-do list. By all accounts, I think Sunderland are still looking at spending another 30-40 million quid, and a lot of that might go on another attacker. Talbot, I did mention, I don't think it's quite Prem ready. We're not convinced Paddy Roberts can really make the step up. Let's see. I'm obviously really got my fingers crossed for that. Adingra is obviously Premier League proven. We know that. Isidore and Mayenda, I think all the Sunderland fans are happy to give a shot to. But after missing out on Llorente, the Sassuolo forward, this link to Yilmaz really does feel like it's got legs in it for me. Because I think if Sunderland were going to go for this kind of 4-3-3 shape, Talbot and Roberts, you are really crossing your fingers big time on them paying off. I think Mundell, you guys were quite generous to him in the comments section on the last video, but someone like Yilmaz, who is a left forward type winger, could play in a front two for Sunderland, the way they kind of play their 4-4-2s or whatever, but could play on the left. You could have Adinga on the right, as well as any of the other guys we've mentioned, and I think that feels much closer to being like a Premier League level front three, if Sunderland were to go down that road, versus the sort of front three we have on the board without Yilmaz in here. So it feels like there's definitely one more big attacking talent to come into Sunderland. I still think they need to be IDing someone else, or two more players in defence certainly, and midfield has maybe got something else to go. But goalkeeper, this guy Patterson is quite highly rated on Transfermarkt. He's got a really high transfer value. You guys didn't really say anything bad about him either, but Sunderland have been linked to some goalkeepers. Petrovic, that move kind of fell through, didn't it? And I'm now seeing links to Stefan Ortega Moreno, a ball playing good shot stopper, but a ball playing goalkeeper. Petrovic, much more of that kind of shot stopper guy, isn't he? So there might even be some room to happen in between the sticks for Sunderland here. This Xhaka move, I think, is a real underline, a real statement of intent. This midfield, this engine room that Sunderland have now built, should be able to compete on a number of different fronts against a number of different teams in the league. And as I said earlier, I just changed the colours of the dots just to make it visually a bit easier to digest, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sunderland did really shake it up a little bit and go for this kind of box midfield. Like this, there's not a lot of pace in here, right? But there is a lot of power. There's a lot of composure, and this would be really hard for a lot of teams to break down. You're then really putting a lot of pressure on the forward players, but to find that space to counter attack and transition. This gives me kind of Leipzig vibes, this kind of setup here, if they were to go down this route. But with the likes of Adringa, Mayenda, Talbot, Paddy, if Yilmaz comes in, there's any combination between all these forward players you could see Sunderland using, and probably using to quite good effect as well. And like we've mentioned earlier, they do have tactical versatility. This could be a 4-3-3, a 4-4-2 proper, with Lafie coming in from the left and being that kind of free playmaker from wide. and someone like Adringa maybe being the engine to go up and down the pitch. So I can see that all that stuff kind of happening, and like I mentioned in the last video, I do think that is something that Sunderland really do need to have in their arsenal, is the ability to mix things up in different matches. But seeing the way Diarra was deployed next to Andre Santos at Strasbourg last year, I do think that the most likely midfield double pivot type of thing that Sunderland will use will be Xhaka with Diarra, because Diarra's kind of done that game already where it's like bodyguard for the playmaker, let Xhaka roam around the pitch a little bit more and Diarra will just cover his back and protect the defence, that sort of thing. And Sadiq coming from Belgium, I think he'll step up, I think he'll do really well, but compared to everyone else in the team sheet here, is the one that's maybe furthest removed from already having Premier League experience compared to Diarra at Ligue 1, Lafille, Ligue 1, and then coming through the Championship, and obviously Xhaka, former Arsenal player. But yeah, with someone like Yilmaz coming in, I could easily see this type of shape being something that they go back to, that kind of pace on one side, with Lafille being the kind of tight kind of playmaker out in this wide spot here, and then like Yilmaz could be a great foil for Isidore or Mayenda. You've got Talby, you've got Roberts off the bench. This could be something that you see Sunderland used, again, to good effect quite often. But again, a very versatile team, and you know, whether it actually looks like this, or maybe it's even something a bit more traditional like that. Again, I think the main worry I've always got with these promoted teams is that they don't quite have the quality or flexibility. Sunderland have added sincere quality into their squad. Their manager has that flexibility, and he's been adding in more players that can help with that. The number one thing I think is, yeah, like I've already mentioned, an extra kind of layer of solidarity in the back there, and then maybe that final big money attacker to give them enough firepower, because maybe without someone like Yilmaz, there's maybe not quite enough goals in this front line, is there? And I've just put Sadiq back on the board, so I've got the right numbers and everything else. But yeah, man, Sunderland are showing no signs of slowing down, and if you were excited before with their business, I think Granit Xhaka, captain level type of guy, coming into the squad. It gives me little vibes of Cambiasso signing for Leicester, if you can remember back that far. And you all know what happened to Leicester, you know, so yeah, this is a fun move. I think it gives Sunderland an extra dimension. It gives them a bit more credence to be in the we won't be relegated team that gets promoted into the Premier League this year. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Thanks very much for all the insight and all the comments we got on the last video. It really helped me understand the squad a lot better, and hopefully made this video a lot better as well. Feel free to jump into the comment sections again with thoughts, feelings, takeaways, suggestions, oversights, whatever it might be. On screen are now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you have enjoyed the content, if you have enjoyed the video, please do hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Hit the like button, of course, if you did enjoy it. Stay out of trouble, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.